Good Thursday morning. Welcome into Morning JOX, JOX 94.5 on this 13th day of March. And the first day one of the SEC tournament is in the books. And we know what today's slate is going to present itself. Had a lot of action yesterday. Again, it's kind of, if you've been following along, kind of we did in the regular season, you don't necessarily call them upsets, but based off just seeding purposes, it's kind of an upset when you look at some of the games that went toe-to-toe last night. Then there was one game that was an exception to the rule. On Mississippi State and LSU, they could have moved that game to noon and we've been okay.
I just feel real bad for the guy that called or texted in yesterday and said, watch for LSU to get hot and potentially go on a run here in Nashville. I genuinely feel for you this morning.
It's tough because that game was over rather quickly. You the Mississippi State jumped on them early, and oh boy, it's sometimes it's like that, man. But go Tigers nonetheless. It's been a rough athletic calendar for LSU so far. I mean, you look at least on the men's side of things. In football, kind of feel like you left some change on the table for the regular season, and then basketball, you signed your coach to a new deal though, so I think you're trending upward.
Your last coach just made the NCAA tournament again last night.
If only they would
big win for McNeese.
If only they would have had a huge ass offer for him. I think he would have been okay. But the FBI kind of they got involved. So what do you do?
Yeah, what do you do?
What do you do? What do you do?
What do you do? It is one of those things that's kind of funny though, because that happened now, wouldn't matter.
Yeah, it wouldn't at all. Well, let's get started on the SEC tournament. Kind of recapping what happened yesterday, and we'll start with the final game of the day, just because it's the freshest thing on my mind because it's the last thing I saw with Oklahoma and Georgia. It was a back and forth ball game. I think probably outside of the first game, it was the best game of the day.
Yes, and the first game was really only good for the last handful of minutes.
Exactly. Yeah. So overall, it was a more competitive matchup from tip-off to the end of the ball game. But Oklahoma knocks off Georgia 81-75. And we talked about, young guys stepping up when mostly pertaining to Alabama and Auburn. But a name that, if you've been watching Oklahoma for pretty much the entire season, Jeremiah Fears, welcome to the big stage, my brother. And those are the type of games that you got to have. He drops in 29 points, and he's a freshman, fresh out of high school, saying, "Hey, you know what? People say all the time, you make your change in March. You make a name for yourself in March." And I think for Oklahoma, who's kind of in that boat of we're not necessarily quote unquote secure for an NCAA tournament bid, but any win that we have in this SEC tournament is only going to help our resume. And, I mean, it was a back-and-forth ball game. Georgia had a little bit of a lead early on, but Oklahoma fights back, and they end up knocking down the Bulldogs to set up a matchup with Kentucky tonight. But overall, just a pretty good game.
Yeah, no, I thought it was a really, really good game, and you kind of hit on it. But I think now if you're Oklahoma, you definitely feel like you're secure when it comes to the NCAA tournament. Now you're just kind of playing to hopefully, continue to improve your seeding for next week. But no, I mean, like you said, Jeremiah Fears was incredible for Oklahoma last night. I mean, there's a reason that he's going to be a lottery pick in the NBA draft this upcoming year. He was just absolutely remarkable. And, it was a good game. And you got, even at the end, I will say, again, it's one of those games where the end kind of dragged out a little bit. But you had that moment where I guess it was with about 45 seconds left. You had Oklahoma with the turnover on the inbounds, and then Georgia gets the ball, and you're like, okay, this thing's about to get interesting here. And then boom, Georgia turns it over, backcourt violation. And I don't know what, if you're watching the game, I don't know. Maybe I'm just not, the rules expert here for college hoops, but the Georgia player lets the ball, because it's going to be a backcourt violation because the inbound pass, or, his teammate tried to pass it to him and just a bad pass. And the Georgia player just lets it roll for about 4 or 5 seconds before he picks it up, and then the foul is called. Yep. And it's a turnover. And you're like, I feel like those 4 or 5 seconds probably could have come in handy for you. And it ultimately probably wouldn't have made a difference in the game, but it was just kind of a bizarre ending where you went from, oh no, Oklahoma's going to blow it to, oh, no, it's okay. Georgia actually blew it. So don't worry about it. But yeah, no, that was a big win for Oklahoma last night. Again, I mean, Georgia's secure as far as the NCAA tournament goes, and I think Oklahoma had a very good shot at getting in regardless. But now you leave no doubt, and you get to go and play, like you said, a Kentucky team tonight. The winner of that game, as we know, will play Alabama on Friday. So that's another big opportunity for you tonight. I will say I was impressed with the fact, and we talked to Blake Lovell yesterday on 3-Man Front, who's there in Nashville, and he was telling us this, but the amount of Kentucky fans that you saw in the stands, I saw some Tennessee fans too, and I mean, okay, it's in Nashville, you get it, it's not that far for them, but just to see them there early when their teams, especially Tennessee, you're not playing until Friday,
right?
And you see some Tennessee fans, but there was a lot of Kentucky blue there, so that's definitely going to be a challenge for Oklahoma coming up later today. But no, again, a great win for them, and it just kind of continues the trend of these teams that we thought at the end of the year were like, man, all right, we might fall down. Maybe we're only going to get 10, 11 SEC teams into the NCAA tournament. Every single one of the teams that needed to win to continue to keep their hopes alive or cement their status, I'll be gone. That's all they've done the last week is win the games they needed to win. So shout out to Oklahoma and Jeremiah Fears. Also, shout out to Mo Waggy. He was big for them last night. I know a lot of people remember him from Alabama and their Final Four run last year. He transferred to Oklahoma this offseason. But he came through, gave you 12 points and 9 rebounds last night. He had a really big rebound late in that game to kind of help seal the deal for Oklahoma. So, yeah, really good impressive showing for the Sooners in their first time in Nashville.
Absolutely. And we'll just go in reverse order. And then before the tip-off between Oklahoma and Georgia, there was Mississippi State and LSU. You could have gone about your day once Mississippi State kind of got –
Hey, it was 9-9 at the beginning.
Yeah, and then it only got bigger from there for Mississippi State. Mississippi State knocks off LSU 91-62. For LSU, a season to probably forget. It kind of happens, but Mississippi State, Josh Hubbard, I mean, he had 23 points in the first half. Didn't necessarily need him in the second half. Finishes with 26, and it's like, okay, let's make sure you're good for tomorrow. Let's make sure you're good for Thursday, big dog, because this game is pretty much done, and it was quickly.
Yep. Yeah, I was about to say I don't really have a whole lot to say about it. It was just exactly how you laid it out. I did think it was cool though. Because if you're watching these games on the SEC network, after the game's over, the winning coach would go on set and do an interview, and sometimes a player would be like last night. You had Porter Moser and Jeremiah Fears after that game, but you had Chris Jans go up there and do the interview afterwards. And, they were kind of asking him about him being ticked off at times during the game. And that's just the kind of stuff that I'm like, hell yeah, coach. That's what I'm talking about. Like, you just won a conference tournament game by almost 30, and you're still, mad at, oh, yeah, we had a couple bad inbounds in a row, and that kind of stuff's not going to cut it because you understand that, okay, yeah, sure, that was a nice win, whatever. We went and handled our business. But, again, Mississippi State's a team, and with a guy like Josh Hubbard, you get into March Madness and you're looking at this like, I mean, if we start playing our best basketball right now, like we're going to be a team that nobody wants to see. And so I just thought that was really cool that even after a 30-point win, I love when coaches do stuff like that. And you're like, all right, I see you, coach. I see you.
Yeah, and the game right before then, Texas and Vanderbilt. Texas is in pure desperation mode. And I think I'm not gonna say they're gonna pull off an upset today. I do think Texas A&M is a better basketball team, but the way that they played yesterday, once they got the lead, they did not look back. I mean, Vanderbilt just kind of, you felt like, okay, they're not giving up, they're fighting back, but Texas, I mean, it felt, especially in the second half, any three ball they looked at was going in. I mean, it felt as though like the ball was just finding the right man. The right pass was being made. Vanderbilt felt like they were one pass away on the defense of like, oh my gosh, can't believe he was wide open. Boom, Texas is there. Even on the block, there were certain times where they come off a pick and roll and there's a dude just waiting right there under the basket. Just boom, there it goes. And Vanderbilt's kind of looking around like, what did we do wrong? I felt like we put up a defensive effort for maybe 32 of the 35 seconds on the shot clock. And then the last 3 seconds, you're like, oh, come on, man. And Texas, they ends up knocking off Vanderbilt 79-72. And for a team that's, again,
had to win that
you
one.
have to win these ball games, and they're putting up a fight here towards the end. And I think that this Texas and Texas A&M game is going to happen today. One, it's already a rivalry anyway. I think if Texas A&M comes out flat, Texas is like, hey, we ain't got nothing to lose at this point. So I think what we saw yesterday from them and a good Vanderbilt team who's going to the NCAA tournament, it's kind of a gut punch. It's, ooh, we let that one get away. But Texas, I mean, they handled their business like they needed to.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And I mean, we were talking about fears for Oklahoma and how good he was. And Trey Johnson had 19 last night for Texas. And again, I mean, he was the leading scorer in the SEC this year. He's been remarkable. That's another guy that's going to be a lottery pick. But, especially for Texas, just the way that the season ended with that game at Oklahoma, and you were just flat. I mean, again, Trey Johnson, he was like 0 for 14 from the floor. I mean, it was an abysmal performance from them, and you could easily see them just going, all right, well, we just kind of ran out of gas at the finish line, and it is what it is. But, Vanderbilt's a good basketball team, and we spent a decent amount of time talking about them this week, and that's a team that, I know a lot of people probably had as a sleeper in this tournament. I think there's going to be a number of people that look at Vanderbilt, depending on how the brackets lay out, as a team you might see, making it past that first weekend of the tournament, just because they're very well coached, and they're pretty sneaky good, and they have some big wins on their schedule, and I know and you heard Byington after the game, and it was, yeah, I mean, we came here to win, but now we get a couple extra days rest, and we look at the tournament like, hey, we're going to see some of those teams on the 1 and the 2 line and go, oh, we already beat you this year. Like, all right, we're just kind of playing with house money, and that's the kind of attitude you need in that sort of situation. So, I think Vanderbilt will be fine. Again, it's, I think there's a lot of teams here that, losing early on in the tournament, I'm not saying you want to do that, but I don't think you're going to lose that much sleep over it, just because, again, you are then going to get more rest and be more ready for next Thursday and next Friday. But again, like I said, man, these SEC teams that needed to win when they needed one, that they're getting them. So we'll see. I'm so excited for Texas and Texas A&M, because again, you just know, and I do wonder, a little bit if you're buzzed and you're just like, now we really have to try to win this game.
right
now we do not want Texas to be able to go, okay, yeah, maybe we got bounced in the first round of the NCAA tournament, but you know why we got there? Because we beat A&M in the SEC tournament to get into the big dance. So that game is going to be, I think that game is going to be electric.
It should be, man. And then we'll talk about the first game of the SEC tournament, because Coach Cal said, hey, we don't even care. It doesn't even matter unless we're playing in the finals on Sunday. Well, that was almost in jeopardy for a while. Ooh. One, you jump out to almost pretty much a 20-point lead. You're up 17 at half against South Carolina, the worst team in the SEC. You're thinking, all right, this game's over. Then you flip, you may flip your TV for about 10, 20 minutes. You come back, and South Carolina's only down by 3. And it's like, wait a minute. What happened? I don't know what lid was on the basket for Arkansas in the second half, but them Sun Guns couldn't make a shot to save their lives. And I was just sitting there so confused, like, okay, don't tell me you're about to please do not tell me you're about to let South Carolina come back. I'm begging you, Cal. You're not going to be able to live this down if you let South Carolina come back. And South Carolina came back and made it interesting. Arkansas still ends up taking the victory 72-68, but the game was a lot closer than it needed to be, especially late in the second half.
Yeah, it definitely was. And, I mean, we were, doing the show live, watching the game, and it's like, oh, okay, we're starting the second half, a couple minutes in. Arkansas's up 20. Okay, like, Arkansas's looking good. Like, I know Coach Cal didn't care, but the players do. So,
right.
All right, whatever. Like, they're playing good basketball. It is what it is. This is how it should have looked a couple of weeks ago when South Carolina absolutely destroyed you. And then, yeah, like you said, you look up and you're like, it's a 7-8 point ball game. Okay, this is interesting. And, I think the big takeaway for a lot of people, or at least after the game and getting to hear from Coach Cal, like, what are you doing? So if you missed it, all right, so John L. Davis goes to the free throw line, or he's at the free throw line. Arkansas is up by 3.
Yep.
With 3 seconds left, 4, something like that. All right, so he's up 3, Coach Cal tells him, intentionally miss this free throw, remembering that if he makes it, you have a 4-point lead with 3 seconds left. So the only way that something could go wrong for you is if South Carolina hits a full court shot and you foul them and they hit the free throw. Like,
right.
There's no conceivable way you're going to lose that game if Johnell Davis hits the free throw. Fortunately, he did hit the free throw after Coach Cal told him to try to miss it. And then he's trying to explain his rationale after the game of, well, I like to do some unconventional things. And, if you miss it, then they're going to be forced to make a full court shot just in the moment, and they're not going to have time to draw anything up or whatever. And it's like, dude, you would be up by 4 points. Like, that's what you do when maybe you have a 1-point lead and you're like, oh, well, if they do it, we're going to lose anyway, so let's just make it more difficult on them. But when you have a chance to go up 2 scores with 3 seconds left and you tell your...
He made it worse by opening his mouth.
Yes.
He made it worse by opening his mouth. Like, Coach, we could have just, assumed that, hey, you were tripping. Maybe you lost. Maybe you didn't understand the lead, or like what? Maybe you lost in the emotion of the game. But the fact you come out and try to explain it, it's like, nah, just go up 4 and you're up 2 possessions. Like, that's essentially what it is.
It's like, man, why are we trying to overthink these things? These are fundamental things. It was just mind-boggling. But hey, you win and you advance, and now you get to play hotty-toddy.
Absolutely. And looking at the second round matchups in the SEC tournament, tipping off today at noon, the number 8 seed Ole Miss takes on the number 9 seed Arkansas. After that, about 2:30-ish, almost 3 o'clock, we get the Lone Star Showdown between Texas A&M and the University of Texas. And then after that, we have Mississippi State taking on the number 7th seeded Missouri, and the nightcap, the number 6 seeded Kentucky Wildcats take on the number 14 seed Oklahoma Sooners. So we want to hear from you, 205-834-9450. What you thought about the games to yesterday? What you think about the games today? Which game are you most interested in seeing? I think a lot of us are looking for that Texas A&M matchup, just because, one, we would love to see Texas A&M actually throw up on themselves a little bit, but also kind of give Texas a little bit of a grace period, I guess you would say, for them welcoming them to the SEC. It's okay. We're not necessarily mad at you, but you did knock off your rival, so we all can laugh at Texas A&M together. So we want to hear from you, 205-834-9450, to take a look at this SEC tournament. Keep it locked right here on Morning JOX and JOX 94.5. It is that time, baby. March Madness. We're in conference tournament time, getting you set for next Thursday and Friday. Everybody getting your brackets, at least getting them printed off. Come Sunday, and then the mayhem happens in the NCAA tournament. It could be some mayhem in the conference tournament as well. Welcome back into Morning JOX. JOX 94.5, Damian Mitchell alongside Conrad Van Order. And of course, you as well, our wonderful listeners, 205-834-9450. Just getting some reaction from the SEC tournament games yesterday as we started off with Arkansas knocking off South Carolina 72-68. Texas defeating Vanderbilt 79-72. Mississippi State all over LSU 91-62. And Oklahoma pulls off the upset over the University of Georgia 81-75, which sets up today the second round matchups getting you started at noon. Ole Miss taking on Arkansas, Texas A&M taking on Texas, Mississippi State taking on Missouri, and the nightcap we have Kentucky, Oklahoma. And the winner of the Kentucky-Oklahoma matchup will then turn around on Friday and take on the number 3 seeded Alabama. And whoever wins the Arkansas and Ole Miss battle for today will take on the number 1 seeded Auburn Tigers on Friday. So it should be interesting today. And I think when you look at some of these matchups, I think Missouri Mississippi State could be one of those sneakier games too, because of the fact that
should be a really good game.
Yeah, because Missouri, if they get hot, they got to find some. Mississippi State's going to have to find some more, some more weapons in that arsenal besides just Josh Hubbard. Which, again, if Josh Hubbard goes out there and drops 40 on you too, then
you're all right.
Yeah, it could be interesting. But I think for the games today, Arkansas and Ole Miss could be competitive. Ole Miss is the better team, but Arkansas right now, I think that as long as Coach Cal doesn't get in his own way, it wouldn't be shocking if he were to pull off, and beat an Ole Miss team of this caliber. I think Texas A&M, Texas kind of playing off of emotion, really and truly. It's, hey, we have nothing to lose at this point. And what better way to stick it to our rivals than to beat them and us continue and find ourselves in the NCAA tournament and say, hey, we didn't necessarily think we was going to be here, and appreciate you, Texas A&M, for allowing us to have this opportunity, to say the least.
Yeah, essentially that's what it's going to boil down to, and it'll be interesting to see how A&M comes out, because they had the momentum off the Auburn win and coming into the SEC tournament, and is that something that is going to propel them? Because let's be honest, Texas A&M, at least for the last couple of years, or at least last few years, come SEC tournament time, they seem to find a different gear, and they just seem to love playing in Nashville. And that's a team we've seen go on a run here multiple times under Buzz Williams. So maybe that's going to be the case again this year, and they're planning on playing themselves into Sunday. But yeah, Texas, again, I do think for Texas, you have to win this game. I don't think if you lose this one, I think it's over for you in terms of your NCAA tournament hopes, unless essentially everyone else on the bump above you were to lose today. But still, yeah, if you're Texas, this is essentially a win or go home type of game. And so how do you come out and respond to that going up against, your rivals and your in-state, the hatred between those two schools, and now that's being reignited here in the SEC. I'm very, very fascinated to see how Texas A&M comes out and handles that matchup today. But yeah, and then like you said, after that, you're going to have that Mississippi State-Missouri game, and Missouri struggling a little bit here towards the end of the season. They kind of peaked around that Alabama win and some of the, how they were playing around that time, and then it's just been a little bit of a dip for them, but we've seen that, now essentially for everybody in the league at one point or another. So, they're still a very, very dangerous team, and I think if you start, they rattle off a couple of wins here, I think that hype's going to be back for Missouri to do some damage in March. And then you have Oklahoma and Kentucky tonight, and that's going to be a game where, again, Kentucky is the better team. Oklahoma, you wonder now, do you take your, not saying, everyone wants to win these games, we know, but, now that you're essentially solidly in the tournament, does that affect the way that you play, that now you feel like you've given yourself a little bit of wiggle room with the committee? And for Kentucky, this is where things start to heat up for Mark Pope, in the sense of, what was the frustration with Cal? It was, okay, come tournament time, you started to lose a lot of games that you weren't supposed to.
Yep.
You saw Kentucky, once they got to March, having these early tournament exits against the Oaklands of the world and teams like that, and just kind of left the fan base scratching their head. And so now this is where, Mark Pope can come in here and I think have a really nice end to his first season with, hey, we're not doing that anymore. We're not messing around. We're going to go and handle our business. And, especially once, March Madness comes around and being able to go and, at least make it through that first weekend and say, all right, yeah, this isn't the Calipari days anymore. We're moving past that. We're not going to have these upsets where we're overlooking these mid-major teams. And, that's a big opportunity for them. And then, yeah, as we said earlier, the winner of Oklahoma, Kentucky will advance to play Alabama tomorrow. So I do have quickly the latest bracketology.
Here we go.
After last night. So speaking of Texas has now moved up. So they're still in the first 4 teams out, but they are now the first team in that group. So essentially, they are the first team out of the NCAA tournament.
Mhm.
So a win today, again, I think would propel him over, especially because Texas A&M is a very, very good opponent. But you had Ohio State, who lost yesterday. They fell down. North Carolina won, so they jumped up because them and Texas were right there. And so, you look at North Carolina, maybe they lose today, Texas wins, then you flip-flop them, and there you go. There's your 14th SEC team in. Joe Lunardi has Oklahoma. They're still in the last 4 in, but again, they're at the top of that grouping.
Mm-hmm.
So you would imagine a win today would move them into the byes category. But a loss today, I still think you're going to be in. I don't think they have a whole lot to worry about there. And according to him, he says Hogs appear to be safe after escaping South Carolina in the opener of the SEC tournament. So Arkansas should be good since they did get that win. Because again, I mean, I think Arkansas could have lost to a lot of teams, but losing to South Carolina twice
that was going to hurt.
in a couple of weeks, the worst team in your conference, yeah, you couldn't have done that. So there you go. Good for Arkansas. They seem to be safe. On Oklahoma, he says Sooners are a good bet regardless, but the win last night puts them over the top for the NCAA tournament. So there you go. They are good to go as well. You have Texas. He says the Longhorns are very much alive after the big win over Vanderbilt, but are going to need another one in order to increase that seeding. So yeah, there we go. As it stands right now, 13 SEC teams projected to make the field. Texas, the last team or the first team out of the tournament. So win today, and we could get back up to that number of 14. Because I thought 12 was probably going to be the right number,
right?
Because it looked like it would be 14 for a while, and then some teams hit some rough stretches, and 14 is kind of just astronomical number. But now it looks like 13 is going to be the floor and 14 is going to be the ceiling for the SEC, which is just an absolutely crazy thing to accomplish in college basketball when it comes to how many teams you're getting in the tournament. And I don't do this often, but I guess I'm pulling for Texas today.
What? That is
I guess I'm going to pull for Texas. It's for the health of the conference, Damien.
Okay.
It's for the greater good.
All right.
I could put my pride aside for 2 hours.
You can indeed. And you did it for a minute yesterday.
That was only a minute. It felt like a day.
Oh, that's I'll let you handle that on 3-man front, because I feel like that's going to be a nice topic that y'all are going to discuss, because you did pay off your bet. But also other people were part of that collateral damage as well.
And I appreciate y'all. And this is what I told Pat afterwards. I was like, I respect that y'all were willing to go out there with me and
yes,
not
sir.
Because I thought y'all were going to go and, stand up here and look out the window in the studio or something and be at a safe distance. So I respect that y'all are willing to get a little taste of what I was going through and making all that work. So yeah, so if you missed it, yeah, we had the Stinky Fish Challenge yesterday, and that video will be posted this morning on our social media feeds if you want to go and watch that. And yeah, I'm sure we'll be talking about it.
And I'm telling you, the video won't even do it justice. You had to have been there to take a whiff of that. And
yeah, I can't even try to describe it. I don't know.
There's no description except it is, think of whatever is the worst thing that you've possibly smelled in your life, multiply it times 3. And you, Conrad, you're a trooper, brother. You are a trooper. I'll just leave it at that. 205-834-9450. Your text message, your calls on the other side talking about this SEC tournament. And also a question. If you're Auburn, would you rather face Ole Miss or Arkansas? And for Alabama, Would you rather face Kentucky or Oklahoma? Who do you want to see as far as your first game on Friday in the quarterfinals in the SEC tournament? We'll discuss that on the other side. Keep it locked right here on Morning JOX and JOX 94.5. 6:37 here on Morning JOX, JOX 94.5. Damian Mitchell alongside Conrad Van Order, and of course you, our wonderful listeners. 205-834-9450. Text line, phone lines always open here on Morning JOX as we kind of just take a look at the SEC tournament as it is. We wrapped up day one yesterday. Looking forward to day two. And then tomorrow when we wake up, we'll see both Auburn and Alabama grace the floor. Who will they be playing? You ask? Well, Auburn gets the winner of Ole Miss and Arkansas, which tips off at noon today. That'll be the first game on the SEC network. And Alabama, they will face the winner of Kentucky and Oklahoma. And we kind of asked during the break, right before we went to break, if you're Auburn, who would you rather face between Arkansas or Ole Miss? And Alabama, who would you rather see, Kentucky or Oklahoma? And Chris G texted in from Tuscaloosa, says Auburn will take any team that we have to play. No fear. Okay.
I mean, yes, but of the two, you have to have a preference. It's not a sign of weakness to say I'd rather play this team than the other.
Right. I think it would probably be Ole Miss because of what you did to them in the regular season.
Yeah, you've beaten them twice.
Yeah, and pretty handily. Arkansas, I mean, it was a little bit close for comfort, but you still beat them. But I think what Cal, no matter how we slice it up, and as unconventional as he is, he's a good coach, and he can find ways to kind of make games a little bit closer than they need to be or they appear to be.
Well, his unconventional methods, like trying to miss free throws at the end of the game.
Exactly. What if he's in that same situation against Auburn and it works? Then he looks like a genius for a couple minutes.
I still think he would have looked bad after that if that's the way it happened, because people would have gone, well, if things went a little differently, that would have come back to bite you. But yeah, I would think if you're Auburn, Ole Miss is maybe a little more appealing, just because again you've beaten them twice. But I do think with that same logic, on the Alabama side of things, all right, you've beaten Kentucky twice this year. I think you'd rather play Oklahoma. I would rather play Oklahoma,
right?
Personally,
that's why I was wondering too. If you've beaten Kentucky twice, and I mean it may have been a track meet, but you still beat them. But I think in all, you would much rather see Oklahoma on Friday than you would Kentucky.
Well, yeah, last time you played Oklahoma, you beat them by what, 50, 40?
Right.
To open up SEC play. So, yeah, I mean, I think you'd rather have that matchup than just because, I mean, Kentucky's good. Like, I mean, they can get up and down the court with you. They can put up 100 points almost as easily as Alabama can at times. So, yeah, I mean, again, you're going to have a preference of who you want to play. I understand,
right.
Yes, every team is looking at it as, well, yeah, just whoever's in front of us, we're going to play them. We're going to go and try to handle our business. But, we're fans. It's okay. You can pick and choose.
Absolutely. Jamie from Hayden texts in. He says, I see no reason for Alabama to win at all in the tournament. They need the rest more than they need to win. I get it, but I don't necessarily agree with it. I think that, one, momentum carries.
Mhm.
So again, like last year, kind of exceptions to the rule. It's, all right, you lost to a pretty good team. You're out of the first game, and then you make a Final Four run. But I think it would be you feel a little bit more confident going into the NCAA tournament if you're hoisting an SEC tournament crown going into it.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I guess I look at it like this. Okay, I don't think that you're going there with the intention of, oh, well, we're not really going to give our best effort so we can get eliminated and go and have the extra couple days of rest. I mean, I could be wrong, but I guess I look at it more as you're going to try to win. You want to win the SEC tournament because, again, this year it's going to mean so much at the end when you're able to look back and go, all right, yeah, we won the SEC tournament and probably the greatest and most competitive season that this conference has ever seen. At the same time, if you are at Alabama or in Auburn and you find yourself losing, let's say tomorrow in your first game, I don't think it's really going to bother you that bad. Like, do you want to win? Sure.
Right.
But it's not going to be one of those things where if you lose, you're that devastated, because it does come, there's pros and cons to it, right? So even if you lose, you get the benefit of extra rest. If you keep winning, you get the benefit of momentum. So, and we could sit here and debate that. And again, this is as we've had a number of people, text and call into all the shows throughout the week, this is a coaches and players versus, the outside perspective on things, because I think we can all agree that these teams, I don't think Bruce Pearl or Nate Oates or Janai Broom or Mark Sears or any of those guys are going to sit there and tell you, oh yeah, we're not trying to win these games. They are trying to win these. That's what they do, right? They are competitors. They want to go out there and play. But we look at it from a different perspective because we're looking at it from kind of that 30,000 foot view of, okay, well, yeah, these are the benefits to it one way or the other. And I know people, oh, well, nobody's going to, just try to lose. Well, obviously, nobody's going to try to lose, but we have a different perspective on it than I think the players and coaches do, just from the standpoint of we're on the outside looking in at a bigger picture, whereas they're focused on who's the next opponent, what do we have to do to get ready for that next game and go out there and play our best basketball and try to win. So I think that's the difference in these kinds of conversations. I don't think any coach, any player in any of these tournaments has the attitude of, well, yeah, we just don't want to play. We don't want to compete. We're just going to go and put 5 backups in there for 40 minutes and take our ticket home. So that's just the way that these teams are going to be built. And I mean, especially for Alabama, I mean, I know, some of the players, spoke to the media yesterday, and, Mo Diabate made it clear. He said, we're going to Nashville to win the SEC tournament.
Exactly.
And that is the mentality that they should have.
I agree 100%. Cody from Birmingham, he texted in. He says, hey, I'd rather face Arkansas. They almost blew a 20-point lead. Right. So it's kind of one of those, all right, we find ourselves down 20, which, God forbid, happens against Arkansas. It ain't like it's a safe one. It's not like a safe lead for them. So, I think that's a good mindset to have. You'd much rather face Arkansas. And I would probably say Ole Miss, just because of the fact that you seem to have had their number in a big way, where I'm not going to say you can go in thinking, oh, we've won the ball game. But if you get to a big enough lead, they're not coming back. You kind of you can remove all doubt because you've already done it early on this season.
Yeah, they're not they're not a Kentucky or an Alabama or, an Auburn or Florida like type team where, you go take a bathroom break, you go get something out of the kitchen, you come back and they just went on a 12-0 run, right? Like, they're not built like that offensively. And so, yeah, I think you feel a lot better about those kinds of situations. But again, I mean, especially for Auburn, with just them being the number 1 seed and the best team in the country, yeah, you are probably just looking at it as, all right, we got a chip on our shoulder. Like, you do not want to play us in the SEC tournament. And I think that's the mindset that Bruce Pearl has. And maybe he hasn't had to motivate his team to get there. Probably not. But I think that's what you're coming in there with. If you're Auburn coming into Nashville, you're like, I feel bad for these teams that are going to have to play us for the next 3 days because we've got something to prove. And, oh, y'all don't think we're the best team in the country anymore? Oh, we're number 3 in the polls now? Oh, okay. All right. Yeah. Bet.
Yeah, right. Yeah. That's all we needed.
Ball up top.
Yep. Exactly. 205-834-9450. We see you on the phone lines. We'll make sure we get to you on the other side. Keep it locked right here on Morning JOX, JOX 945. 6:49 here on Morning JOX, JOX 94.5. Damian Mitchell, Conrad Van Order here with you for a few more minutes as we get you set for McElroy and Kublik in the morning, coming up at the top of the hour. And let's go to the phone lines, 205-834-9450. Let's go to our buddy Edward, who wants to talk some ball with us this morning. What's happening, Edward?
I was thinking if, as a player and a coach for Alabama, I would rather play Oklahoma because Oklahoma, I think Oklahoma we beat pretty good. And if Kentucky, they have some to prove. Plus, they're bigger guys. They are big guys. So I'd rather play Oklahoma and be in good shape to play Florida because Florida, that's one that we want to beat to get a, number one seed.
Oh, yeah. We appreciate you, buddy. And yeah, I think that Oklahoma doesn't match up well with Alabama. And we kind of saw that earlier.
Yeah, I was about to say, we've seen that.
Yeah, we've seen how that one goes. In Kentucky, yeah, they're pound for pound, talent for talent. They can match up with Alabama and run. Like you said, they can run up and down the floor with them, and they can score 100 just as quickly as Alabama can. So,
yeah, but again, I mean, if Oklahoma wins this game tonight, you're sitting there and you're probably feeling pretty good about yourself if you're the Sooners going into that game with a lot of momentum, and you played the last couple of days, and Alabama's had some rest, and I think it could be tricky either way. I don't think Alabama would beat Oklahoma the way that they did earlier. They might, but I find that hard to believe because Oklahoma has started to play better basketball, and they're ending the season the way that they needed to secure their tickets. So
absolutely, let's keep on going on the phone lines. Let's go to Alan, who wants to talk some ball with us. What's happening, Alan?
Good morning, gentlemen. How are we?
Hey, can't complain on this Thursday, my brother.
That's right. Hey, quick question, because I can only see it going this way with this state and how competitive this basketball season has been. Alabama wins the SEC tournament. Which one would you guys rather have? The SEC regular season championship like Auburn, or go into the NCAA with the SEC tournament championship? Who would have the ultimate bragging rights?
Ooh.
It's a good question, Alan.
Great question.
I would probably just say with how good the league was this year, I would probably go regular season because it proves that you were better for 18 games.
Yeah.
And I know the tournament setting and stuff, it can feel like maybe that means a little more because it's just a tournament, having to play it back to back to back to back. But yeah, I would go regular season.
And I look at it from this perspective. Say if you're like a Oklahoma or Texas where you're kind of borderline in the tournament or not, you 1,000% solidified if you win the SEC tournament.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of like it kind of depends on where you are in that situation.
Well, I was about to say, yeah, for those teams, you absolutely want to win the tournament.
Right. And
but for Alabama and Auburn, I think Auburn's happy to have that regular season.
Oh, for sure.
Title. I think they'll take that over the tournament.
Absolutely. Let's talk to the fan of the SEC regular season champions, the Auburn Tigers. Let's go to Don Don. What's happening, Don Don?
Good morning, guys. Conrad, how you feeling, buddy, from after yesterday?
I'm alive, I think.
You didn't get killed when you got home, did you?
No, I did not. I will say the decision to not eat it, I think, was smart because that seemed like something that would have killed me when I opened the can.
Yeah, I'm glad you didn't eat it too. But yeah, that was a great question the last caller had and everything. And Alabama and Auburn over the last 5 or 6 years have done both of them, and that was a very good question. But on the Auburn and Alabama, I don't know if you guys know this, looking at bracketology, Conrad and Damian, but they both could be playing in Lexington next Thursday.
Yep, that is absolutely right.
And here's my question: both the fan bases will be up there in masses and everything. You think that'd be kind of funny? You think that they're going to pull against each other? I'm pretty sure they will.
Yeah, I would say so. It'll be like last year when they were both up in Washington together at the same site or the same location for that first weekend. Don, I don't think you're going to see any Alabama fans cheering for Auburn there in Lexington and vice versa.
Well, they both played together in Birmingham 2 years ago, and as a Birmingham person all my life and everything, and been to just about every basketball tournament we've had here, that was just amazing. And especially on Saturday when Auburn was playing Houston. And I go ahead and tell you right now, guys, there wasn't no Alabama fans around me rooting for Auburn in that game. I can tell you that.
I guess we got to step up our sportsmanship.
Yeah, well, I tried to do that, and Damien got mad at me, Conrad.
I'm just not doing it.
Can't even let the man finish his sentence?
No need to. We're up against it anyway. So yeah, we only had a minute. He's gonna go for 5. No. So you're telling me, Conrad, if Auburn and Alabama are both up there in Lexington, and Auburn's playing, the 16th ranked, Harvard Crimson coming in there, and Harvard pulls off the upset, you think Alabama fans are going to congratulate Auburn for a great, a nice trip, a safe trip?
No.
I didn't think so. Sportsmanship. Pass it on.
To other conferences.
Yeah. You think Texas and Texas A&M are going to have a little sportsmanship battle? You think Texas fans are going to congratulate Texas A&M if they win?
Just nobody throw anything.
Well, I tell you. Macaroni and Cubic in the morning. They're next.